Let's talk about an animator that I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship. And that animator is none other than Keane. By the way, when I mean love-hate relationship, I don't mean it too literally. If you don't know, Keane, he was one of the most prominent animators of the Disney Renaissance because of his unique and stylized, but also very accurate and soft character design that he had. The big thing that he had is that the way he portrays the poses, the character design, and all the you know, all the art style that he had in between his animation and his design is really smooth, and they really look as close as anatomically correct and at the same time as stylized as possible. He was really he's really prominent when you see almost all the movies of the Disney Renaissance. Mostly the most notable ones, like Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid. So you might be thinking, why do I have kind of like a love-hate relationship to this guy when, for the most part, I do have a big respect to the man? Actually, it's something very petty. It's because when I was in animation school, there was not a single day in which the teachers or even my colleagues, they begin to talk about Keane. They say, look at this, look at that, Keane this, Keane that. So it's kind of like the king of being the reference king of the school. So basically, it's more kind of like a fatigue that I was like, oh gosh. Yeah, that's kind of like my love-hate relationship to him. It's not out of pettiness. By the way, yeah, I do know that Keane did work on Tangled, which up to this date is probably my favorite Disney princess movie there is. But now, Keane separated himself from Disney nowadays, and now he's doing other work separated from what he was recognized with. I mean, I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, in which he won the Academy Award for his basketball short called Dear Basketball. You know, the homage to Kobe Bryant. And boy, you can notice that his animation style and character design is really beautiful and really smooth. It has a unique charm out of it. But now, it was time for him to go to make his own feature film. Well, feature film, since we are now in this hectic area in which now it's pretty hard to put it into movie theaters. Well, at least it got movie theater in a few movie theaters, but in my case, it didn't go to movie theaters. I had to watch it on the other platform that it appeared, which is Netflix. That's right. For those who doesn't know, I'm gonna talk about I think it is his directorial debut on a theatrical film, which is none other than Over the Moon. When I saw the trailer, two things came into my mind, and honestly, those two things was kind of like a mixed reaction out of it. First of all, I was putting faith on Keane. I mean, I think that the guy had enough experience to try out his own thing. But here are some of the things that make me okay. First of all, the movie is set in China. Again, probably we're getting kind of a little bit of a lot of movies that is set place in an Asian country. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, But I think that the problem is that Disney kind of marred the whole scene in which they're having kind of like a favoritism to this country in order to get a lot of money, a lot of publicity out of it. So it's not. I'm not saying out of spite. I mean, I already told you if that a song that is good, it is good. I mean, look, I give out my positive when I review Enter the Fat Dragon. It's a little bit of a fatigue out of it, and it doesn't help, of course, that the movie was also in production with this company called Pearl Studios, which one of the movies that it released, it was last year's Abominable. And you can tell that it had kind of like the same character designs from Abominable in one way or another. But the second problem that I was kind of skeptical about the movie is that the way it was presented, I was fearing that this movie was going to be the next Wonder Park, which is all childish wonder but less substance or no direction. To come to think of it, Wonder Park had no direction, and look at the garbage pile that it turned out to be. But still, I was open-minded. I mean, we're talking about Glenn Keane. He's now spent years working for the industry, and it was about time for him to challenge himself to be in the directorial chair to create this movie alongside other people. Oh, and just in case, this movie is actually made in memory to a fallen writer. I don't remember the name of that writer, but well, let's say that this writer has also her Wikipedia page. So anyway, I left all this bias. I know that the movie was released a few days ago, but I was mostly distracted by other things. And also because we're in the Halloween season, I'm mostly trying to watch more horror-related stuff. And at the end of the day, the good news is that I like the movie. I like the movie. It's not exactly the Wonder Park that I thought that it was gonna be. But the bad news is that you can tell that there are some missteps. There are some missteps in this movie that could make it really good. But for the most part, it's well done, but not well done enough on some of the properties that it needed to focus on. But I will say this. This is probably one of the most non-Disney movies of this year that it was kind of close to having the correct elements of a good Disney movie. But not by a long shot. This is kind of me being more kind to the film. So the movie is about this girl named Fei Fei, who she has a tight bond with her mother and father, in which the crux of the family is that she enjoys hearing her mother telling the story of a moon goddess. A moon goddess that basically the story is that she fell in love with this guy, but she took the immortality potion that made her go ascend to the moon without her lover. So both they get separated, and now she lives alone on the moon waiting for her lover. Although the only solace that she gets is that she is accompanied by a jade rabbit. And basically, it's kind of like this love story that it kind of reminded me of the Japanese mythological tale of the moon goddess. What was it? Kaguya. Yeah, the Princess Kaguya. It's a nice but tragic story also. But basically, that was she bonds with her, Fei Fei bonds with her mother and the father with that story. And also because they also have a business of making this pastries called mooncake. which is good. In a side note, it was kind of funny because I want to tell you also that this animated film is also a musical. So when they began to sing and I saw all these pastries, let's say that weekend I just saw a play involving Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And when I saw all these cakes and thinking about Sweeney Todd, well, let's say that it kind of gave me a little bit of a morbid imagination out of it. Okay, but continuing on with the story, what happens is that after the mother gave the Fei Fei a little bunny rabbit as a pet, she dies of cancer. Well, everyone is really sad. And the movie becomes actually legitimately sad. I've gotta admit. It's not as, super stronger as Up, but it has the tones what it gets. But then what happens is that a few years later, Fei Fei realizes that her father, he decides to get married again. So he meets this woman who, I don't remember her name, but I only know her because she's voiced by Sandra Oh. In my mind, she is the voice of Sun Park from American Dragon, Jake Long. So yeah, the father's planning to marry this woman who also has a son named Chin. Basically, it's a little kid who wants to be a ping pong wizard. Even though, yeah, he's a talented player, but let's say that he's so very rambunctious, a little bit annoying, and in his mind he thinks that he has the superpower of crossing through walls. Yeah, they even let you know when he slams his head into the wall. I can't imagine if this movie wanted to be clever enough and put a blood splatter on the wall. But basically, yeah, their family reunion. We see that Fei Fei still believes in the moon goddess, but she's also not very happy with the stepmother and the future stepbrother. She also doesn't like that people are basically changing the story of the moon goddess, because she kind of still believes in it. She kind of feels like this is a strong suit. She believes that because her father is getting remarried, he's gonna forget his deceased wife. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that the father is voiced by John Cho? Okay, that was a side note. And so pretty much, Fei Fei becomes this bratty, mean-spirited girl who wants nothing to do and doesn't want to accept that she's gonna have a new stepmother and a stepbrother. She's not willing to change that. In a way, you just want to slap this girl, but at the same time, you understand that she's dealing through a grievous moment. So, what's her solution? Well, she thinks that in order to make his father remember that he used to love her deceased mother, he's gonna need evidence that the goddess exists. So she basically gets the idea to build a rocket made of junk and things that you buy in Amazon, taking a toll on her poor father's credit card. And with her little mind, she builds a rocket for her and her pet rabbit. So after a series of things, she builds the rocket, a rocket that if I remember correctly, it could put probably the rocket from explorers to shame in one way or another. She flies to the moon, and she doesn't know that her future stepbrother and the frog and his pet frog are also in the rocket. So in a moment where they almost die, a beam of light gets them, and they're sent to the moon where they can breathe well because of the magic powder of flying lion dogs. And they get to the moon, a moon city, which I'll get to that, with creatures, which I'll get to that, where they mean this moon goddess. What was the name of the moon goddess? Just in case. Hold on. Oh yeah, Chang'e is called that moon goddess. In which basically she's kind of like a bitter woman, and she's looking for some gift. I'll go later about this gift. She's looking for a gift, and anyone who gets that gift, she will concede anything that they want. Of course, Fei Fei wants a picture of the moon goddess, in which she says that I'll give it to you when you give me the gift. And then there's the gift hunt, and basically I'm telling you the basics of the movie. If you hear me talk about this, you're gonna notice that there is something heartfelt and something of a potential in the family dynamic. But once I get to the point of the moon, this is when things get a little bit ludicrous. I wish I could say that this is where the magic happens, but something begins to fall apart a bit there. First off, let's go with the technical things. Obviously, the animation is good. No duh, it's Glenn Keane, and he has experience, and since they have higher budget, you know that I always say that it's always a gimme, so there's almost no point talking about it. Except when there's some things that I do want to say. Because there are some moments in which there is some semblance of 2D animation, especially in the beginning of the movie, when you hear the tale of the moon goddess, and you're gonna see the seal of quality of Glenn Keane's character design and animation. And honestly, these hand-drawn animations are a million times better than the CGI animation when you put it into comparison. Mind you, I'm not saying that the CGI is bad, but there are some moments in which you see it kind of unpolished, but you see that even for a few seconds of traditional animation, feels that they have much more effort and much care compared to CGI animation. That is one thing that I kind of noticed. The character design, yeah, it feels, they look fine, I'll say. They really look a little bit reminiscent to Tangled, but it's less smooth when you compare about it. It has more of the quality of Abominable. Sorry for the Abominable. It has more of that quality compared, because of course they're not Disney. They have kind of like little money for that and less of a budget. But that's just speculation. That's just kind of like a speculation. Everything else, I will say that they look good. The sceneries look good, mostly on when it's on the city. But once you get to the moon, it feels a little bit barren at first. But then when you reach the moon city, you're gonna notice that this is where the imagination becomes to go a little bit wild, but at the same time you see some cheaper moments. Some observation that I do have is that, first of all, the citizens are this kind of like, I don't know, these mooncake people, because mooncakes, and also there is this, you know, these kind of like droplet people. In my mind, I was thinking that we were finally seeing the moon version of the Candy Kingdom of Adventure Time. But at the same time, when I begin to see all these gloves and all these things, you know what it kind of reminded me? Have you played this Super NES game called The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare? There is this level in which Bart has to go into the blood cells, and there's these cells, you know, all around. For some reason, that's what it kind of reminded me. Okay, we got the technical part here. Now we're gonna talk about one thing that this movie is, which is being a musical. As a musical, I will say that I have a little bit of not a problem with it. I know that many people are saying that the problem with musicals is that it feels a little bit unrealistic. Here's a trick that made me tolerate this film. I kind of began to treat it like it is just kind of like watching a play. Just watching, you know, a group of actors doing what they want to expand their imagination. And the good thing about the imagination is that you get that there are some things that you can stretch your sense of believability out of it. Even if you're gonna stretch it about a 12-year-old girl doing rocket science and all these things, when normally these scenes kind of take years, as well as protocols and everything. It's a lot to come into mind when you get there, but okay, you wanted to make to reach it to a younger audience, fine, fine. Just don't blame me if you're gonna have your children slamming into walls and people are like, okay. That's the thing out of it. And continuing on with the music, I'm glad that the music is not exactly bad, but it's not memorable. There are some bland cues here and there, but it's not exactly that is horrible. The singing is technically good, but not exactly Disney memorable that it's gonna make that you're gonna even remember it. Which is a shame, because sometimes I've seen musical films that they're bad movies, but somehow probably one or two songs I got it in my head. You know that Playmobil movie from last year? The villain song is still stuck on my head. That's probably the biggest highlight that I got from that one. Oh, but there is a moment that probably it may cringe many people, in which when the moon goddess appears, instead of becoming a musical, it turns, you know, with the opera singing, it turns a little bit into hip hop, because younger demographic loves hip hop. I'm not against hip hop, but man. To be fair, later there's gonna be this kind of like rap song involving a battle with in a ping pong battle between the queen and the little brother. And honestly, that part is my favorite part of the movie for some reason. And now here comes what's the biggest problem that this movie has to be a well-made film in general. Well made in the terms that in narrative, it feels pretty rushed, because you'd see that they take the time to make a story in the beginning, but then once you reach kind of like the moon, most of the elements that appears, suddenly it turns into bullet points, in which you're gonna notice that yes, Glenn Keane has some experience doing Disney films, and I cannot blame him if a lot of the elements you're gonna feel that those are some of the things that he learned from Disney. Sometimes when you get to some kind of education or a school, it's kind of hard to deviate from that. And he has you know, the Disney elements that you're gonna notice. They got the music, you got some of the emotions, the writings. It tries kind of itself. It has all the elements that he learned from Disney. And come to think of it, just in case. Hold on a second. Well, there it is. Sorry about that. A few years ago, I went to California, and I was lucky that on a museum there was a Pixar exhibition, and I bought this book. Innovate the Pixar Way. This is an interesting book in which it kind of shows you some of the tips and tricks of storytelling and the quote-unquote manipulative vibes of how to tuck the strings on specifically a Pixar movie. And you know what? This is what I noticed in Over the Moon. I noticed that it knows how to pull the strings on some relatable things, like the grief of losing a parent and dealing of the changes of having a new stepmother who basically wants to change the recipe of a tradition or something like that, and also to deal with, well, an annoying brother, and you kind of want to reject that. This part is fine, but again, when you go to the moon, it kind of mostly turns into a journey to get even a gift. They tell it is a gift. Everyone goes into this wild goose chase, and because the movie doesn't even want to clarify, even at the end, by saying, "What's that gift? Can you specify what is that gift?" It is my gift. It leaves it too vague. It's kind of like, for example, it's kind of like if you were ordering someone and saying, bring me the treasure. Yes, the treasure. What the treasure looks like. So they begin to kind of speculate what is that and everything. And so this gift thing kind of bothered me a lot. So much that in order to create some kind of tension that feels separated from the norm, we got our character Fei Fei and the little kid being separated halfway through the movie. It's almost like it didn't reach the quarter of the movie to have the characters interact with each other to have some meaningful moment. And of course, we spent Fei Fei probably joining these motorcycle angry chickens from Mars. I'm gonna call them like that, and just out of it. In order to give her the gift, and then she's like, "What the gift look like?" "Oh, they look like." You know what? I'm not gonna reveal you exactly the whole movie. And while the other kid, he kind of becomes a prisoner, and then we also see Fei Fei's pet rabbit. She sees that she wants to help the jade rabbit with the partner of the moon goddess, in which he kind of looks like what will happen if the rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, you put it green. And they kind of create this potion in which they I'm not gonna reveal you exactly what it is, but it's just there out of bullet point because they just needed something. They didn't kind of establish it to in ways that we get invested to. And then almost halfway through the movie, we get introduced with this lunar pangola. Pangola, I think it was called. Kind of like it's basically like a Chinese armadillo. It is green neon light creature who was exiled from the moon because of a song. And also he's voiced by Ken Jeong. This creature kind of feels like it was added in the last minute only for comic relief, because he's just there to only give out exposition, and he comes a little bit too late into the movie to make us feel like we care. I mean, he has a cute design. He's not technically kind of like annoying. It's kind of like he's basically the Bing Bong of the Inside Out. They wanted to create this kind of character, but it doesn't have too much of an impact to make us believe it. And funny enough, the movie wanted to make us feel like we should concentrate on the relationship between Fei Fei and her little future stepbrother. But these characters get separated for a long time So much that we feel like there is kind of like no connection and not an arc that is meaningful. Because one thing I think that probably Glenn Keane forgot is that it's not about how many things you can put and how many things you want to put in order to look like a Disney film. He kind of forgot that one of the basic things about character development is also communication. Characters need to be with each other to base on some kind of communication or something that they can relate to. But the elements that they got is so weak that it feels more like a construction more than polished, than a polished product. Come to think of it, you know what? Hold on a second. We're talking about a girl who is having a grief of losing a mother who had cancer. It doesn't specify that it's cancer. She is afraid of changes. And then she goes into this magical world of creatures. You know what? It really is Wonder Park. I just got that thought that no wonder I felt that it was kind of like Wonder Park. Although to give it credit, at least this movie is better than, kind of 10 times better than Wonder Park. You know what? Now that I think of it, even the climax, some of the elements does feel like Wonder Park. Maybe it's B. I'm not going to review you exactly what it is, but if you kind of notice some of the element that is back to back between Wonder Park and Over the Moon, you're going to notice that there's some element that it's been picked from one thing to another. Although, at least to the credit of Over the Moon, they used those elements a little bit better compared to Wonder Park. Oh my God, guys, that's just me. That's just me. But anyway, yeah, we do get there is a climax. There is which it has a little bit of a good moral, but I want to put you this a little bit of a side note. I'm getting a little bit of a fatigue of having movies saying that you gotta accept the winds of change, everything change, you gotta accept the change, change is good, change is good, change is everything, you have to change is good, change is that, 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 change is that. I want to see movies or something that teaches us also the opposite. Because not everything that changes is for the better. Sometimes there are changes that are actually for the worse, and sometimes there are moments in which it's better left off unchanged. Let's put it a little bit of a raw hypothesis. Let's say, for example, that people always like to change on technology, but the more technology advances, it brings out the consequences to the ecosystem. Basically, the more humanity changes and the more it progresses, the planet Earth gets destroyed because it needs more resources, and basically it needs more and more. It kind of goes into this greedy cycle. So sometimes I think that there are more things, in an ideological point of view, that we should teach that not everything that is about change is positive. Because there is kind of like this false sensation of hope. But this is kind of like a little rant that I got from mostly a lot of animated films or films in general that I've been seeing kind of constantly, especially in this day and age nowadays, in which, yes, I agree that it's a natural thing that we grow up. We grow up, we go through changes in life. That's a good thing. But there's also some things that should should stay the same. Because there is a reason why they stay like that. There's a balance of things. Oh my god, I'm getting a little bit too philosophical when I was supposed to talk about this Glen Keane film. But basically, this is all my overall opinion of this film. And in summary, I'll say that Over the Moon, I applaud it for the effort that it's been done. Because this year has been a little bit hectic with a long string of bad movie decisions that I have seen. But it is kind of like a bit of fresh air that I finally got a movie that, well, it's not perfect. It is good for what it done. But if I had to be blunt on what it needs polish. Trying to focus a little bit more on making the elements that you show work instead of creating a bullet point of saying, okay, this feels like a Disney movie. This feels like a Disney movie. We need this character to to look very beautiful and everything. So there is some substance, but the substance it needs some construction out of it. But for Glen Keane's first try, he didn't do a bad job. I've seen worse cases. I mean, when I compare it to movies like Animal Crackers, I think that Over the Moon is worth it at least. Not as the best, but technically kind of like a rental. It's a one time or two time movie to watch, and at this point, I just hope that Glen Keane learns a little bit from what he can do or what he should not do in order to at least create, let's say, an award-winning film. If I like for a better term, to be kind of like not being perfect but good enough. So, in ways, you were kind of a little bit close of becoming something that could rival the style of Disney without being Disney. But it still is a road in order to defeat this giant. So with that said, now that's all I have. That's all I have to say. Did I mention that they also tell in the story that there is this giant dog that eats pieces of the moon in order to create the face of the moon? That was pointless. Because we know someone who can eat the moon properly.
Me take flight from here, me take flight from there, and pretty soon me flight everywhere. Me eat with both hands, no need fork or spoon. Me chew it all up until there's no moon. What happened? Who turned out the lights?